Welcome to the NBAV podcast.
Welcome back to NBAV and the NBA Avenue podcast. We're coming to you on a day that's post Super Bowl here on February 12th, 2024. And you got to watch that Super Bowl game and just feel like it was missing something. Am I a disgruntled NBA fanatic, or is there something to it? I think there's something to it. It's, by all accounts, not considered a classic Super Bowl in the sense that the play was sloppy for a lot of the game, and you just weren't getting that crisp, clean, offensive flow. Yeah, you had some drama because the game went to overtime. The game was very close, and that brought the dramatic ending. You have Taylor Swift and everything going on with her and Kelsey. He almost scored the final touchdown, but no, they held him out of the end zone, and then the final touchdown ended up going to Nicole Hardman. And, you watch the game, and it's interesting when you try to compare the NFL to the NBA because you can't really have an NBA Finals like that in the sense of in the NBA, you have a 7-game series between the two best teams. I know that this year, most likely you would consider this the two best teams, right? You have the 49ers. They're the 1 seed from one conference. And then you have the Chiefs, where although they're not technically the 1 seed, they are the royalty. They're the royal team who have won a couple of championships. Right now, it's 3 and 4 years. They made it to 6 straight AFC championship games, so they've earned the right where they don't need to necessarily be the 1 seed to be the 1 seed, to be the favorite, at the very least, in the game and in the in the odds to get to the game. And I'm sure that they'll be the favorites to get to the game again next season. But you don't really have an NBA Finals where 2 teams get there and offense just doesn't go. It's just so different. You have a 7-game series where, yeah, it's possible that one team could win a couple of games, go up 3-1 or 3-0, and the last game or two may not have that same oomph that you had earlier on in the series or when it started. But you don't really get this, at least we haven't had it for as long as I can remember, a game where you walk out of it with just feeling like you got gypped in terms of not getting real offensive, execution. To me, as the NBA fan watching an NFL game, it seemed like the trick play was really effective. That was what scored the 49ers touchdown, right? It was the trick play. It was the lateral pass from one side to the other side. And then it was on the Chiefs side as well. They had trick plays where they were faking the run, and there was one particular play where they faked the run and Mahomes ran the ball himself to the right. He kind of faked out the cameraman because the cameraman himself was following the running back, and Mahomes ended up running, and he did this a couple of times where he ran for really nice gains. It was more so the trick play that seemed more effective than anything, at least from my vantage point. And you got to see, similar to a Nikola Jokic-esque, where Patrick Mahomes knew how to operate coming down the stretch. He knew how to operate when the game was on the line, and he was the more reliable guy. You knew that he was going to come through. He didn't really rely on anyone aside from exactly who he knew he could rely on. So you have Nikola Jokic relying on Jamal Murray. You have Patrick Mahomes not really relying on the running game at the end, really relying on Kelsey and relying on the wide open pass play and relying on himself, relying on his own legs. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, that's kind of what I saw from the game from the NBA perspective. And now we are able to gear right up to the NBA right now, put the NFL in the rear view mirror. We can focus on a couple of games until the All-Star break, and we really only have about 30 games, 30 to 31 games left in the entire season until we enter playoff basketball, where things start to get really, really exciting with the play-in and the playoffs at large. So what I would like to do is kind of get the pulse of the league. And with about 30 games to go, you have teams who have a very clear vision of where they're going and why their fans should come to the ball games and buy tickets and come to the arenas to watch their favorite team play. And then on the other side, you have teams where it's a little unclear why would our fans want to buy tickets? What do they have to look forward to for the rest of these 30 games in the season? So let's take a little bit of a look. As we go from the top, you start off with the Boston Celtics. And what's hilarious is if you listen to the Boston Celtics media and podcasts and YouTube channels, they're all scared of one thing. And that is the team that they beat yesterday before the Super Bowl started. That's the Miami Heat. They beat them by 4 points in a game where Jimmy Butler didn't even play. But the game was still pretty close. It was a 4-point ball game. And the Celtics fans are all scared of the Miami Heat. The Heat currently sitting near the bottom of the playoffs. What seed are they? Are they 7? Are they 8? I know they're battling it with the Orlando Magic. Currently, the Magic are 7, and the Heat are 8. They're separated by 1 game. The Heat are in the 8th seed currently. And the one team that the Boston Celtics are just petrified of are the Miami Heat. Yes, of course, the Celtics would be worried about playing the Denver Nuggets, but that's in a championship. So, yeah, there's the eventual, if you look down the road long term, if you make it to the championship, yeah, it's going to be a tough series if you end up playing Denver. And that's the most likely team that they would play if you had to fast forward and take a gamble at it. Yeah, you would probably bet on the Celtics playing the Denver Nuggets. But up until that point, the Celtics fans aren't worried about Cleveland, despite the good record and despite the hot streak winning 9 in a row again. And they're not worried about Milwaukee. Yeah, it'll be a tough series. Milwaukee has a championship caliber roster. They haven't been able to figure anything out now, but they don't inspire the same fear that the Miami Heat do. The Miami Heat, it doesn't matter really what they do during the regular season. They just inspire this fear because the Celtics fans know that the Heat have a recipe to beating them, and that is the Celtics have this one struggle which they haven't fully figured out, which is how to end ball games. And every Celtics fan will say this. It's incredible how the same narratives are echoed around Celtics basketball, and it's like all the fans are really united in the same exact idea, and they keep surrounding this and just revolving around it, which is that they're scared about how their team executes in the final few minutes, where the entire game they seem to get easy shots and dunks and layups, and they play this great team basketball, and then at the end of the game, it sort of enters the hero ball phase where Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're kind of entering the hero ball, and they take tougher shots. They take fadeaway threes. So where does that really come back to bite them? It comes back where they're going to play against the Miami Heat, a team that seems to learn and figure things out at the end of the game, at the end of the season, and they know how to execute there, and they just have the Celtics petrified of facing them. It's the one fear for a Boston Celtics team that has a 5-game lead on any other team in the entire Eastern Conference. So there's no question of why Celtics fans would want to come to ball games for the rest of the season. You have 30 games left to watch this team, and whenever they play at home, it's a virtually guaranteed victory. They basically never lose on their home court. You move on to the 2 seed, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Why would you not want to watch this team right now? You're watching almost a guaranteed victory. You're watching Donovan Mitchell play the best basketball of his career. You're in a 2 seed. You're ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks. You're in a place where you never dreamed you would be as a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. So yes, of course, you are super excited to go back to the ball games, the most excited you've been since LeBron James was on your team. Then you have the Milwaukee Bucks. Fans are always excited anytime you have the Greek Freak suiting up in a Milwaukee uniform. It's a guaranteed good time. Go watch them play. Yes, some nights you'll go home a little bit disappointed as you watch your team trying to figure it out with the inflection of Doc Rivers bringing in now Pat Beverly. Yeah, you sometimes may go home a little bit depressed, but you know that your team has a chance to win a championship. They already won one, and now they have a roster that's capable of winning again. You move on to the New York Knicks. New York Knicks fans have got to be absolutely ecstatic. They make a couple of trades. They bring in some new pieces. They're a little bit injured right now. But with Jalen Brunson leading this team to unseen heights, yeah, it's been forever since the Knicks won a championship. But you kind of have that little bubble forming in the back of your mind saying, I wonder how far the Knicks can go. It's there. The seed is in the back of your mind, whether it's healthy to have it there or not, whether it's a realistic expectation or not. It's there. The MSG fans are loving this team, and they're loving the mentality that they bring under Tibbs. And I understand that. That makes perfect sense because this team hustles, and they play every game. They play their hearts out. And whether they have their entire team available or whether OG and Julius Randle are out of the game, whether Hartenstein's out of the game, whether he's in the game, whether it's Ochoa, whether it's Taj Gibson needing to fill in on a 10-day contract, this team is exciting to watch. Then you have teams like the Indiana Pacers, where the future is brighter than a shining star. You have Tyrese Halliburton, and you have so many other cast of characters. I'm not going to go through them all now. You have cast of characters in the G League who the fans are excited to see. The Indiana Pacers bringing in Pascal Siakam now. They are a super exciting on-the-come-up team. So fans are rushing to the stadium, and they are hosting the All-Star Game this year. It will be exciting. You have the Orlando Magic, and they've been such a consistent product the entire season. Behind their future, their present, their everything, Paolo Banchero, you'd be crazy to not want to go see this Orlando Magic team on the come-up, similar to the Indiana Pacers, but mostly centered around Paolo Banchero and centered around Franz Wagner. And they've been very, very consistently good. They bring it every single night on the road, at home. It doesn't matter. The Magic have been a very consistent product. They win most of their ball games. They're 5 games above 500. They've won their last 2. And you certainly have a reason to come to the arena, to come watch the Orlando Magic play. In the Western Conference, you have teams like Minnesota, certainly a team that you would love to watch play because they bring the they bring the defensive intensity every single night. Occasionally, they break down in the fourth quarter. That's their Achilles heel. It's operating right at the end of the final 3-4 minutes of a ball game with the clogged up nature of Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns sharing the floor together. It's a little bit clogged, and it's a little bit uncertain of how they're going to finish out ball games, and sometimes, it bites them in the butt. But for a fan base who didn't really expect to be near the top of the Western Conference, you will take what you can get, and you will be excited as Anthony Edwards continues his ascent. You have a team like the Clippers, who have now championship aspirations post the James Harden trade. You have 3 stars, Harden, Paul George, and you have Kawhi Leonard rounding it out, the guy who you really believe in if he can stay healthy, and you have championship aspirations, and you gotta love the season that you're having so far, especially in the last 30 to 35 ball games. So fans rush to the arenas. You have the Oklahoma City Thunder, as surefire as anyone could have been this entire season. Super, super consistent, definitely on the rise behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You have the Denver Nuggets looking to repeat the championship. You have the Phoenix Suns, who brought in Bradley Beal now to accompany Kevin Durant and Devin Booker with high hopes. They're currently sitting in the 5 seed. High hopes this season, and a very sure product on their home floor in terms of winning ball games. They mostly always win at home. You have a team like the Dallas Mavericks bringing in Daniel Gafford, bringing in P.J. Washington to accompany Luka, Kyrie, and Tim Hardaway Jr., and the exciting rookie Derek Lively. You have so much excitement as they try to pursue an NBA championship for the first time since Dirk Nowitzki upset the Miami Heat and LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh in their last NBA championship that they won. You've got to be super excited. You've got to be flocking to the stadium to watch them play. You have the Los Angeles Lakers, always an excitement around LeBron James and Anthony Davis, right? You have the streaky D'Angelo Russell. You have Austin Reeves trying to instill some consistency and some reliability. You have Rui Hachimura, a little bit hot and cold, but that's an exciting team that you want to watch. You hope they can bring back Gabe Vincent. You hope they can get a little bit more rounded out around the edges. Then you have a team like the Warriors. Warriors basketball at home is always a super fun thing. You still have the greatest show in basketball. You still have Steph Curry. And as long as he's there, the team is super exciting to watch. You have the inflection of Kuminga. Kuminga racing up and down the court, bringing it on both ends of the floor. They're a team that you will always want to watch. And then you have other teams. You have teams like the Miami Heat, where, yes, they're not the same product during the regular season, but they're still exciting enough that the fans will want to go see the Miami Heat play. You have teams like, in the Eastern Conference, the Toronto Raptors, where it's a little bit murky. It's a little bit murky because this team doesn't have that fast-paced offensive mentality like some of the other teams do. It's a step back. It's a step back, and you watch Scotty Barnes, your future, trying to anchor a defense. But at the same time, you're still moving in a direction where you're not in complete limbo. You have players who seem to get developed through their system and turn into good players, and then they cash them out in exchange for other players, right? They brought in R.J. Barrett now, who you're hoping can figure things out on this Raptors team, which he hasn't done yet. And you have Emmanuel Quickley, and you have Gary Trent for the rest of this year, and you have players who, you know what? You still have a reason to come to the arena. You have a team like the Charlotte Hornets, where they didn't really cash in and try to improve the team that much, but they brought in enough to the point where you want to watch them play. By acquiring Micic and by bringing in Trey Mann from Oklahoma City, you have enough reason to want to come to be entertained. You have an entertaining announcer. You have reasons to come to watch them on TV and to also watch them in person, to see Micic dazzle and see what he can do with this team, with what he can do with Miles Bridges at his disposal, how he can run the pick and roll. You have a reason to watch. You have a reason to sit and eat some popcorn and drink a nice cold beer and watch the team. There's a little bit of excitement there. You have a team like the Detroit Pistons, who, they set a record for losses in a row, true, but they also have two guys who are very exciting to watch. Particularly, you're watching the rise of Jaden Ivey, who didn't get playing time early and throughout the season, but now he is. And now they're playing surprisingly competitive basketball. And you have Cade Cunningham, who really does look like a super promising player. So plenty of reason to watch a ball game if you're a Detroit Pistons fan, even though they're in the bottom of the league. You have a team like the Utah Jazz, who have exceeded expectations the last two seasons with Markkanen, with Colin Sexton. They traded away Olynyk, but they still have Jordan Clarkson. They traded away Agbaji, but they still have other pieces who are exciting. So you have plenty of reasons to go watch them play in the Mile High City. You have a team like the Houston Rockets, who are certainly on the come-up. They have Cam Whitmore coming off the bench, providing a lot of shot-making and excitement. They have their big boy, Alperen Şengün. He gives you reason to come watch the games. You have Jabari Smith, who continues steadily, slowly climbing. Jayshawn Tate. You're watching Jalen Green. You're watching to see them figure things out little by little with the help of Fred VanVleet and with the help of their coach, Ime Udoka. Then you have a team like the San Antonio Spurs, where you're coming for one reason. You're going to watch Wembanyama. And that's enough. On most nights, that is enough. You're going to watch him play. It's not that exciting. I wouldn't be ecstatic, but you know that you're going to watch 7'3" do things on the court that most other teams can't say they have a player who can do those things. So you have a reason to go watch them. You have a team like the Grizzlies in a lost season, but guess what? You still can go watch Jaren Jackson Jr. with the right hand, with the left hand, shoot from three, inside, defense, blocks, excitement, GG Jackson, bringing a little something to that team. You have reasons to watch them and be excited, where you can look at them and say, hey, we can bring back Ja Morant next season. We can bring back Desmond Bane, and we'll instantly be back atop the Western Conference, or at least, a top 5-6 seed, if our guys can stay on the court. So we have reason to be excited as fans. You have the Philadelphia Sixers, where, for the next 30 games, it's a bit of a question of how much you want to watch. considering that Joel Embiid's not going to be on the court for most of those games, it seems. But you still have Tyrese Maxey, right? You have Buddy Hield coming into the mix, and you have a little bit of playoff vibes around this team. Hopefully they'll still be there. You want to come watch Tyrese Maxey and see how many of these ball games he can win. I wouldn't quite put them into the purgatory category where you have absolutely no reason to be invested in this team. You still have a reason to come watch. And then you have a team like the Atlanta Hawks, where they are still an exciting team. They're still in a lot of close games. And as long as Trae Young's on this team, you have reason to come watch because he brings a certain uncertainty to a ball game where you don't know how great he's going to do. You never know if he's going to sink low. You never know if he's going to absolutely shoot super high and play close games against teams like the Clippers, which we've seen recently. And DeJounte Murray now playing a little bit better and getting some buzzer beater, some game winner type. You're seeing him play well in overtime games. So you have a reason as a fan to come watch them play. They get back DeAndre Hunter. They have Jalen Johnson. You have reason to come watch if you're an Atlanta Hawks fan. Then you have a team like the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento is in a bit of a weird place because, they have reason to be worried. Malik Monk is coming up to the end of a contract, and they have just a ton of salary spent on this season and the next. They're going to be paying De'Aaron Fox $35 million next year, Sabonis $41 to $42 million, $18 to Harrison Barnes next year, $16 to $17 million to Kevin Huerter. Then they have $8 million going to Keegan Murray, Trey Lyles, $7 to Sasha Vezenkov, and $6 to Davion Mitchell, and $6 to Chris Duarte, and another $2 to Colby Jones. It's going to be very hard when you're already paying close to $150 million in salary to hold on to a player like Malik Monk, who right now is only making less than $10 million for the season. It's going to be really hard to keep him because somebody's going to offer him a real Brinks truck worth of cash. And losing him is going to be absolutely killer. It's going to be crushing. It's going to be devastating for them. What are they going to do without him? If you look at the last game that they played, go over to Sacramento and see the game where they just lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder by 14 points after a really good victory in their previous one against Denver. What are you going to see? You'll see that in just 29 minutes, Malik Monk scored 26 points, scoring almost a point per minute. Versus where you look at a guy like Domantas Sabonis, who's getting paid over $40 million per year now. In 42 minutes, he scores 21 points, a lot less efficient. And really, the way that the Sacramento Kings need to play is to the strengths of DeAndre Fox and Malik Monk. Those are the spark plugs. That was what was really impactful in the playoffs last year. But unfortunately, there's a high chance they'll be losing Malik Monk. But for the rest of this season, you want to still go watch this team because this is really their last chance because things are going to be changing around Sacramento. You have this short period. Very short. It's a short, small window that they have to try and compete for a championship. It may be changing next year, but for the rest of this year, you certainly have a reason to come watch them. And then the bottom of the teams that you would still want to go watch are the Chicago Bulls. And you only want to watch them for one reason, and that's because you want to see Coby White. If you're a fan base, he's really all you got. Yes, DeRozan can occasionally play well and have a good dunk and bring some excitement. You have LaVine, who's injured, so he's not playing. But outside of that, there's not too much. You're not really going to watch Andre Drummond. You're not going to watch any excitement and really bringing it from Vucevic. That's not what you're going to see. You're going to see Coby White razzle dazzle and hit some deep threes and keep you in ball games that you didn't expect. You want to look at the future, and that's Coby White. So I wouldn't say you're in absolute purgatory, but there are 3 teams in the NBA who are really in that kind of, why would I go to a ball game? Why would a fan buy a ticket? And the first one I would say is the Brooklyn Nets. You watch them right now, and at the top of their salaries, they have Ben Simmons. Nobody wants to see him. He's going to be there for this season and the next, and he's not selling a single ticket for you as a fan base. You have Cameron Johnson, who's more of a role player. You have Mikal Bridges, who's really good, but he's not the number one player on the team. He's a guy who you round out the roster with to win a championship. You bring his defense and his three-point shot ability, and you add him to a top player in the league, and now he brings you from very good to championship caliber. But without that number one ace in the hole type of player, fans aren't really excited to go watch just Mikal Bridges run this team. Then you have role players like Dorian Finney-Smith, and now you have a backup point guard in Dennis Schroeder. Maybe he'll actually be starting on this team. I don't know, but he's a backup caliber point guard. You have Nick Claxton, who, good backup center, good center, in terms of lobs. Yeah, he plays hard, but he's not bringing fans to the arena. You're not going to the arena to watch Noah Clowney or Dariq Whitehead. You're not going to watch Keita Bates-Diop or Cameron Thomas, despite the fact that he might be a streaky player. You're not paying to watch Day'Ron Sharpe or Jordan Goodwin. You really have almost no reason to come watch them play. Dennis Smith Jr. and Lonnie Walker aren't bringing fans to the arena. So for the last 30 games, it's a tough sell out in Brooklyn, a team that already is behind the New York Knicks in New York. And then you have the real two bottom teams, which are the worst of the worst, as low as it can possibly get. You have the Washington Wizards. Why would a fan in their right mind pay to go to the arena to watch this team in its current state? Jordan Poole is embarrassing you consistently to the point where there's a higher chance of you going to watch him befuddle his way and make silly plays, and you're kind of more laughing at him. That might be a reason to go watch the game more than watching it to see him play well. Kyle Kuzma, a player who's, he's maybe a fourth, fifth best player on a championship team. He's not bringing fans to the arena. You're not paying to watch Marvin Bagley and the newly acquired Rashawn Holmes, or Landry Shamet, or Koulibaly, or Denny Avdia. You're certainly not paying to watch the disappointing Johnny Davis, or Corey Kispert, or Patrick Baldwin Jr. Tyus Jones is a good backup point guard on a championship team, but you're not buying a ticket to go watch him on the last year before he becomes a free agent to go to some other team. There's no reason to watch this team in the last 30 games. You've lost the fan base. You're done. It's over. If you're a Wizards fan, you're watching the rest of the league right now. You're not watching your team. And there's one other team like that may be even in a worse, or at least very comparable situation, and that's the Portland Trailblazers, a team that we consistently blast on this podcast. And it's for very, very good reason. It just makes no sense to buy a ticket to go watch them play. DeAndre Ayton is one of the worst players in the league in terms of someone who you'd want on your team. He's making $35 million a year, between $33 and $35 million for the next 3 seasons on this team. You couldn't get him out of here quick enough. Jeremy Grant is a guy you could have traded and brought, teams would want him, similar to Pascal Siakam. Teams want him for the defense and the scoring ability that he brings as, a second, third guy on a championship team. And then you have Anthony Simons, where he's been on the Trailblazers for a while, and you're not exactly sure what he brings you. He can score, he can hit some three-pointers, but it's hard to know whether you should be excited about him or not. And you're certainly not excited to watch Malcolm Brogdon. First of all, he doesn't play half the time. And when he does play, he's inconsistent. And he's not a top dog on your team that you want to watch. You want to watch future. You want to watch players you're like, hey, this guy is a bright spot in our organization. My kids want to watch him play. I'm excited to buy his jersey. The only Malcolm Brogdon jersey you're selling is when it's on clearance at Dick's Sporting Goods, right? Nobody in their right mind is buying a Malcolm Brogdon jersey for their son or daughter on full price. You'd have to be crazy to do that. Robert Williams doesn't play. Matisse Thybulle only brings defense. No excitement on the offensive end. Scoot Henderson has been a bust of busts for this entire season. Shaedon Sharpe is barely on the floor. And I'm not even going to run through... You know what? I'll do it just because it's funny. Chris Murray, Delano Banton, Jabari Walker, Toumani Camara, Ryan Rupert. I mean, come on. Any Trailblazers fan who goes to a game at this point is just going on a date. You know, get a cheap date and bring a girl to the ball game. Go there and dance with your kids and try to get on the dance cam between commercial breaks. I mean, that's really what it's come to for the Portland Trailblazers. It's just an embarrassment. It's a sham. And that's really the state. You have 27 teams where you at least have something to look forward to at the very least in terms of one or two bright spots. And then you have 3 teams where it's like, what the heck are we doing as an organization? Why would any player come buy a ticket? Why would any fan buy a ticket to watch them play? And that's where we stand from now on for the rest of the season. Moving forward, we've got, let's see, the games that we have coming up tonight on February 12th as we move into the NBA phase of the year where it's pure NBA, and I guess if you like hockey, some NHL as well. You have 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 games today and tonight, February 12th. You have the Pacers going to Charlotte, where it's 2 exciting teams at this point. It's the exciting Tyrese Halliburton, must-watch television, against Vasily Micic and the Hornets. And we're going to see if they can play up to a fast-paced team like the Indiana Pacers. We'll see if Trey Mann can bring some excitement to the Hornets. You have the Sixers going against the super red-hot Cavaliers who've won 9 in a row. And it's going to be tough for the Sixers to win against any team, and certainly against a team that's the 2 seed right now in the East. So the Sixers are in free fall and just trying to grab onto a branch protruding from the rocks on the mountains. They're just trying to do anything they can to slow this catastrophic fall in Embiid's absence. You have the Chicago Bulls against the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. Atlanta, you gotta be able to handle business here. You've won a couple in a row, and let's see what you can do against the Chicago Bulls. You are a team that has actually more of a chance this season than Chicago, so let's see what the Hawks can do, or will Kobe White, DeMar DeRozan, and co play spoiler. You have the San Antonio Spurs going against the Raptors. The Raptors should handle business here because they play with good defense, whereas the Spurs are a sieve, an absolute sieve on defense. So the Raptors should win that one tonight. The Pelicans still doing pretty well record-wise, still doing well in the standings, where they're sitting at the 6th seed in a tie for the 5 and 6 seed with the Phoenix Suns. So let's look for the Pelicans to do what they got to do against the Grizzlies tonight. Grizzlies will bring it, but they're severely lacking in talent outside of Jaren Jackson and Gigi Jackson. So you should see a victory for the Pelicans. If not, well, that'll be pretty disappointing. Then you have the Denver Nuggets against the Milwaukee Bucks in what could potentially be another showdown of the potential NBA Finals. Bucks are just trying to get their feet under them. They brought in Pat Beverly in exchange for Cameron Payne, and we'll see what they can do at home tonight against the defending champion Denver Nuggets. You have the New York Knicks struggling a little bit because they're missing Isaiah Hartenstein, they're missing Julius Randle with the shoulder, and they're missing some of their other players. They brought in a few pieces from Detroit at the trade deadline, and they should be able to get it going against the Houston Rockets tonight. Houston, not exactly in that top tier. They're in the mid to bottom tier, really, really close to the bottom in the Western Conference, but they still will bring it on their home court. They have a couple of scorers in Şengün and Cam Whitmore, so the Knicks will have to bring as much of an A game as they can with their missing pieces, but I think they'll be able to handle business. Then you have the Washington Wizards going to Dallas, where Dallas is on a high right now. Their trade deadline moves put them in an incredible position to upset the balance in the Western Conference. I know most people are sleeping on them, but we're not. NBA Avenue is right on it with the Dallas Mavericks. Watch the Mavericks as they blow the Wizards out tonight in Dallas. The Warriors have won a couple of games in a row. I think it's 4 in a row for the Warriors, if I remember correctly. Yes, it is 4 in a row for the Warriors. They're currently 1 game behind the Lakers for the 9th seed. So the Warriors in 10th, Lakers in 9th. And Warriors got to beat the Jazz. They already beat them once recently. They got to beat them again, and I think they will in Utah tonight. You have the Timberwolves going against the Clippers. Timberwolves versus Clippers. This is a battle for the top of the Western Conference. The winner of this game will be in first place. So the Timberwolves currently have a half-game advantage on the Clippers, but if the Clippers win, the half game will be going the other way. The Clippers will be in first, and the Timberwolves will be in second. So that's what we have coming up tonight. I would still give the Clippers the favorite in this matchup because the Clippers can execute a little bit better down the stretch than the Timberwolves, but, it's one game. It's one game, and the Timberwolves play well defensively. They have a good shot, but I would bet on the Clippers if I was a betting man. That's just what logic would dictate, and that's what we have coming up on the docket. So, as always, you can follow us on the social at NBAV and NB Avenue. That's NBAVENUE, and email NBAVENUE, NB Avenue, also spells like NBA venue, at yahoo.com with your questions and comments. We are your source for a great time every time, and until next time, we are out.